and welcome to Ikike Digest, your learning space on Home FTV. I am Kome Odomo. On Ikike Digest, we aim to continuously bring to light environmental issues as it affects communities in our food system. We highlight policy gaps that do not meet the needs of our people and provide our audience with accurate environmental information. In today's edition, we will be looking at the topic, the roots of multi-crisis, disaster capitalism, and just recovery in Puerto Rico. You'll be wondering how we flew all the way to Puerto Rico to get you this information. But do not worry, we have a lot of this information here with us. And we have in the studio with us to better explain how all of these have been achieved over the years. We have Joanna Gracia Soto. She is a program director and having served for more than a decade at Grassroots International as Solidarity Program Officer for Latin America. Giovanna came to Grassroots with a long history of community organizing and movement building for ecological justice and sovereignty in Massachusetts, Puerto Rico, and beyond, and bringing this experience to her deep relationship with partners and the work that she do. You're welcome, Giovanna.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. So how does it feel being a Puerto Rican living in the United States?
Good question. Yes, as a Puerto Rican person, that some people will say, where is Puerto Rico? For those that don't know, Puerto Rico is an archipelago, like a small group of islands located in the Caribbean, very close to Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba.
Okay.
We are in that area. And we suffer a lot of the consequences of the US imperialism, colonialism, and neoliberal agendas. And that has pushed people to migrate to United States to look for a better life. In my case, I ended in United States also because my partner was looking for a job. And I was in solidarity with him. But it brought a lot of opportunities for me because that was the path that connect me with Grassroots and connect me to Latin America, to Puerto Rico, again, working with the social movements there, fighting for self-determination and dignity, like very similar of the struggles here in Nigeria, post-colonial era. So it's like a mixed feeling. I have to go and live in the empire that oppressed and put a lot of violence in my people. But at the same time, I went there. So what I decided to do was, okay, we need to organize here in the belly of the beast and change the policies that are impacting my country and the entire global South. So I feel like a call, like if I am here, I live in the North. I am responsible to organize, I am responsible to advocate and to create some system change that can impact then the places that are connected and that I call home.
Yeah, so let's talk about some historical factors that have contributed to Puerto Rico's vulnerability. What are some of the multi-crises that have caused the downturns in your country?
Yeah, we have been like doing the political analysis and trying to understand the conjuncture and the entire context of Puerto Rico. And we accompany the social movements and my experience coming from Puerto Rico. The multi-crisis, they call it poly-crisis. I was learning a lot and making all of these comparisons in my head. We call it multi-crisis, and what we meet for multi-crisis is political, economic, and ecological crisis that we are facing for decades. And we are very sure, certain that all of that multi-crises are rooted in colonialism. That we are a colony of United States. A lot of people feel that there's not a lot of colonies, the new colonies, but we were invaded by United States and imposed a military government. And we have been a colony of United States for more than 120 years. And that had bring a lot of impacts, a lot of violence. and the push of an ultra neoliberal agenda in Puerto Rico for the benefit of the US interests, because they have used us as a military point to control the Caribbean and other countries in the global south. They have using our fertile land that should be in the hands of the farmers to give it to Monsanto to do their experimentation of GMO. And then what they do is they implement what they learn in my land, and they come to Nigeria, they go to the global south to expand the agenda of that.
I was going to ask you how the US has influenced this. That was going to be the next question I wanted to ask, but you have touched it. So, still on the Monsanto and the GMOs things, that's a huge capitalism. And let's talk about the disaster of capitalism.
Yeah.
How has the Puerto Ricans responded to this, and what are some of the actions that they have done to fight that?
And again, capitalism is connected to colonialism. We know
Sure.
that.
Yes.
And for example, in Puerto Rico, we have a horrible hurricane in 2017. It was called Hurricane Maria, that destroyed our island. What happened there is that the federal government, that is the US government, and the local government, they did a deadly response. O sea, they didn't respond. And the Puerto Ricans have to organize themselves to survive the aftermath. The government and like protecting the US interest, the solution for recovery of Puerto Rico, it was all based in disaster capitalism. And what is disaster capitalism? Is when they exploit the aftermath of a disaster to benefit corporation. And the solutions always are privatization, austerity measures. So they benefit the corporations and the elite, and they're like taking advantage of the suffering of people and not bringing real solutions to respond to the disaster and to rebuild the communities that had lost everything. And I think that is connected also with Monsanto taking our land, and like our government opened the doors for free for all market, like come here. They create companies the day after Maria. The Puerto Rico government make million contracts to support the rescue and the proposed food to people. So it's all a scam to make corporations rich at the suffering of people. And that also happened afterwards when US invade and make a war, and then they have the companies that will rebuild the destruction that they provoke. And I will say the Hurricane Maria was a man-made disaster. Everyone say natural disaster. In Puerto Rico, there have been a destruction of our ecosystem just for the benefit of luxury hotels that want our coast, US companies taking our land, destroying our mangroves, our dunes, our forest, and that create a harder impact because we don't have the natural defense.
As such.
We have had other hurricanes in the past, but when you continue doing deforestation, you continue destroying the ecosystems that protect us, plus the climate change that we know that is increasing these phenomena. You are putting the people in a vulnerable position. And then what happened is that they take advantage of that to just make money. Again, we were discussing in the meeting here in HOMEF is profit over people.
Sure. It's always been profit over people, and it's really sad to see that the government is not doing much. But just before, then you mentioned that the Hurricane Maria was man-made. Now, what are some of the measures that the people are putting in place to ensure environmental sustainability while they build resilience to such?
Yeah. After the hurricane, I went to Puerto Rico as Grassroots International because we want to support social movements that were, and communities and frontline communities that were the first responders, because U.S. Trump was in her first term, and they didn't pass any recovery measure. They were waiting. Puerto Rican people were like around 6 months without energy, so people were dying for the hurricane. They were dying for the aftermath because there was no water, no food, and no electricity. So the movements and the people in the communities, they organized themselves to be the first responders. And there is a mutual aid movement where people organize. And that's the thing that we learned. Communities, they know what they need for the recovery. They know the decisions that they need to make. They know what are the real solutions against those false solutions. So what people did was they occupied schools that through this austerity measure and privatization that were privatized and closing, they make refugee, they learn a lot of things after the hurricane.
Okay.
Those lessons was because we are a colony, we need to continue working to secure our land. Because in Puerto Rico, there is a big dispossession of land to give the land in the hands of the people of U.S. and also the corporations, but also people. Because Puerto Rico is a paradise tax. When the U.S. people can go to Puerto Rico and live 6 months there and they don't have to pay taxes in U.S. And they don't have to pay taxes in Puerto Rico. So they are taking our land and they're putting Airbnbs and they're making money.
Robbing the people.
So people were occupying spaces. People also realized like we cannot rely in the energy system because that was another thing. They privatized the energy system as a solution after Hurricane Maria, but they didn't do anything. So people were like, we know our route. We need to have energy independence. We need to we need to do transition to solar energy, but not this big plantation of solar plaques that they want to bring to these solutions that they
claim to be the real solutions.
We need to work with communities producing the energy in their own communities and controlling their own energy for the well-being and for their health and for their livelihoods. So we start supporting people that were already doing that. Solidarity economy, different kinds of projects that people are doing. Like they're designing like what we're going to do in the next hurricane, how we can face that. And then the long term, because what people really are fighting for is self-determination. We need to end our status of colony because we're not going to resolve our problems if we keep under the oppression of this system. That's at the end, people use the just recovery to keep organizing people and politicizing and doing political formation, that if we stay as we are, we're not going to have land. One of the big things was that us being a colony, Puerto Rico has a policy, a law, that we cannot do any economic exchange with our sister Caribbean islands or with any other country in the world. Everything that gets to our port needs to come in a U.S. ship, and we need to pay 3 times taxes. When the Hurricane Maria happened, U.S. was not responding. We have a Venezuela boat full of food waiting to enter to Puerto Rico, and they were not allowed because we are under an economic dictatorship, that we cannot take our own decisions about what we want to with who we want to exchange. So this is some of the examples I know that are connected to the conflicts, to the problems, and also the solutions that people are building towards the big goal that is self-determination, so we can fix the multi-crisis.
You've been listening to Giovanna tell us the challenges that they face in Puerto Rico. But we'll go on a short break, and when we return, we will see how this connects to what we suffer in the global south and how we can put together a bigger force to fight our oppressors. Stay tuned.
mobilization around land access today in the continent should be seen as a continuous struggle that initiated from the first day that this continent was invaded by colonial Europe.
How has grassroots mobilization impacted them when it comes to the environment, their social life, and the economic?
We don't need to beg state officials and government. We need to force them to represent us, take our demands, take the people's demands into consideration. Because we need to understand that any process of mobilization, any process of unionization, any process of putting people together is a process of building counterpower to whatever power that is oppressing or exploiting the people.
It's time to strengthen counterpower to take over Africa, because Africa is not underdeveloped as we usually hear. Welcome back. You've been listening to Giovanna Garcia Soto, who has been trying to connect the dots between Africa and other global South countries that have suffered from her oppressors. Before we went on the break, she was telling us a lot about what Monsanto is doing in Puerto Rico, her home country, and how they try to impose all of this on Africa, who are less in their own term, but not in our term, because they try to promote profit over people, which we are solidly against. So we want to pick up this conversation from there, and let's emphasize, for the sake of our listeners, we want them to know how these dots connect. What is the connecting factor between Monsanto, the GMO seeds that they are pushing down to Africa, and how you're struggling against it?
And if I can go back a little bit to make like a bigger connection, that who is Monsanto? U.S. practice with the orange, what was that, orange agent? That was the toxics that they used in the Vietnam War. They practice, they experiment that in our forest. And after they finished the war, that become the Monsanto pesticides. It comes from the result of the deadly war, and they trying to make disaster capitalism, making more profits with something that they create to kill people. And I think that they keep kill people in a different way. First was in the war, so they can destroy the forest and see the people and kill them. And they transform that in pesticides to make all of this monoculture just for profit that are poisoning our waters, our bodies, our people, our land, killing our children, our elderly. So that's the first connection that we need to think about when we think about colonialism. And the tools of colonialism is militarism, is war, all of those pillars that we know. Patriarchy, we can talk about patriarchy later. So then that was not enough to practice this out in our forest. We have, in Puerto Rico, we have our fertile lands, but U.S., part of the colonialism idea is to disconnect people from the land. So they want us to be an industrialized country. They separate people from the land, and we import more, like almost 90% of our food come in those chips that we paid, the taxes that came through the United States. So they are trying to destroy our agriculture, because they know that people connected with the land are people with identity that are going to continue fighting for their self-determination. So they took land that was supposedly for the land reform, fertile land that was supposed to be distributed or rented, in our case, in a lower price to small farmers and farmers in Puerto Rico to produce food. They gave the most fertile land to Monsanto.
The most fertile ones.
The most fertile land to Monsanto. And while they're doing that, they're experimenting with all of these things, GMOs, pesticides. And as a people in solidarity with the world, I feel such a pain in my heart that they are using my land to destroy the life of the peasant, indigenous, and Afro-descendants in the global South. Because what Monsanto do with this neoliberal agenda and governments that are supporting that is to selling and commercializing these GMO packages that include the seeds, but also include the pesticides, is the technological packages.
They go hand in hand.
And imposing that to the peasants and the indigenous people and the people that are farming, stealing their native seeds, putting all of this poison in your land, in your water, in your bodies, in your family, in your elders, in your children. And you are seeing the results here in Nigeria. We're seeing the results in other parts of the world that we work, like Mexico, that they have a big fight trying to stop GMOs because corn is their sacred seed.
Yes.
People are connected to their seeds. And we need to protect our native seeds because that's life.
True.
And that is going to save us with the climate change. You need to work with your own seeds that will be adapting to the changes. The solution is not bringing the magic seed that is not real, that is destroying the people's life and lands. The solution comes from protecting our own seeds, ancestral seeds that have been here for hundreds of years that are sustain the life of people. But now we don't have that. Now it's total destruction, illness, not well-being, disconnection to the land, and Monsanto and other companies, because we know that now they're merged. We don't know who it is. They are the ones profiting.
And sometimes one will wonder if they do not know the health consequences of all of this.
They know.
Of course they know, they just decide to turn blind eyes.
They don't care because I think that in the mind of the West and the global North, these systems of oppression like colonialism, they are based in white supremacy. And for them, there's life that's mattered and their life that doesn't have any value. And our lives, in their case, have zero value. The value is the resources, the wealthy, like here, there is a lot of wealth. But that wealth is a different wealth. It's a wealth for the community because the community have the forest to eat, to have their medicine. We were learning today in the meeting with HOMEF the importance of protecting the forest because that's water, that's the ancestral wealth. But corporations want to steal that wealth. Not just to have like a healthy life, it's just because they want that to become profit and money that is not gonna get us anywhere. So this is a project of death. I call it like that. And movements and people like HOMEF and other communities, we are proposing the project of life, an alternative project to this oppressive system. And for that, there's need to be a system change. And that is a combination of we need to protect our environment. We need to stop environmental injustices and racism to protect our Mother Earth. We need to stop militarism. We need to stop GMOs. We need to confront the system. And at the same time, we need to build our alternative or conserve our ancestral knowledge and ancestral alternative. And that's a big, big job.
To do, a very big one to do. You know, I was going to end it there, but because I know that it's a very big job to do and we need to build the resilience, the struggle of people here in Nigeria and other parts who will watch this video, we would like to hear some success story of how Puerto Ricans have fought against colonialism.
We have been confronting all of this, but we have been always in resistance, fighting for our independence and other things. I think that a big, big successful story that was very long-term struggle, as a part of the colonial and our military position in the map, U.S. Imposed military base in our islands. And the last island was Vieques, and they spent there 60 years, and they were practicing with live bombs with people, with Puerto Rican people living there, and also storing all their arms and weapons. And they not just practice with live bombs with their own military, they rented to other countries in the world, maybe Nigeria, I don't know. We're just practicing, destroying all the ecosystem, polluting with heavy metals, the water and the land. And people having like like the cancer rate is
Very
very high.
high.
Very similar what happened
Yeah.
with the oil spills
In the Niger
in the
Delta.
Niger Delta. So this was a collective struggle for 60 years until like the entire Puerto Rican people joined forces. And this is like long. We did everything that you can imagine. We were able to expel the U.S. Navy for our land. Now the struggle, what it is, they didn't clean. They're not gonna clean. So now it's like pushing them to clean. Here, chill, bye. And then what happened? They left us with the destruction, with the illness, with the toxins, with
That
the
they have all done
consequences of
their
them
actions.
taking all our resources for their benefit, and we facing the situation of what we're going to do to restore our ecosystem. That's also projects that I know that are happening here and in Puerto Rico too. How people, social movements, and community organize. That's part also of the just recovery. How do we restore our ecosystem so when another hurricane comes, we're more protected? How we continue fighting to get our land back so we can have food sovereignty and we don't depend of U.S. How we can have our energy independence, and we are seeing advances. The people of Puerto Rico are doing the impossible possible. They are expanding their energy, their solar community, solar energy. They're taking the land back. They're occupying spaces. They continue fighting for all of these austerity measures and privatization policies. It's a long-term struggle, but we have a couple of examples of victory, and I have been learning a lot of also happening here. I think that more things will come. We just need to continue organizing, articulating, and do a lot of political
Keep
formation.
pushing. Yes. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Giovanna. You know, I didn't envisage that this episode was going to be this broad. You know, I thought I was just going to limit it to the struggles in Puerto Rico, but it's very pleasant to know that we do have the same struggle in Nigeria, in Ghana, in other parts of Africa, and the other parts of the global south. And it leaves us to wonder why we are being treated as the lesser being. But then one thing is certain: it is time for reparation, it is time for remediation, and it is definitely time to restore our land, be it in Nigeria, be it in other parts of Africa, but the world must be restored. And we've come to the end of today's episode, and you'll agree with me that it has been very engaging and very interesting. And once again, we say thank you very much, Giovanna, for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you. It has been an honor to be here and also to visit in Home F and learning about all the powerful work that you are doing for environmental justice, for protecting the culture and the dignity of people here in Nigeria.
Thank you. You've heard it all. Remember to visit our website, www.homef.org, and follow us on all our social media handles on Echo Homef. I remain your host, Kome Odomo. Thank you.